The following presentation has been made possible by Woodsville Guarantee Savings Bank, serving northern New Hampshire since 1889. Visit them online at theguaranteebank.com.
Good evening. If you haven't found your seat yet, please go ahead and find your place. We want to be able to welcome everybody this evening, and if you are seated already, feel free to start in on your salads. So we want to welcome everybody to our 96th, sounds like I'm lisping, a 9 and a 6 annual chamber dinner. Our theme this year is the winds of change in the wave of the future. My husband and I were traveling, this is quite a while ago, last summer, and those of you who fly, you don't have to fly too often, that when you're landing, you know that you're bracing yourself for the landing, the tarmac. And so this particular landing, it was in Manchester, and we hit the tarmac, we were bracing ourselves, and we bounced. Not only did we bounce once, we bounced and bounced and bounced, and we didn't know if we were going to stop. And I looked at Bill and I said, oh my word, that was the worst landing ever. And the pilot got on and he said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your pilot. He said, that was not my fault. And he said, and by the way, it wasn't the co-pilot's fault. It was the asphalt. So if you do not have a good time tonight, it is not our fault. We want to thank, big thank you to the Omni and staff, amazing. This is just a great, and we were talking about that, just an awesome time, gala event to celebrate. And we do have a lot to celebrate. We want to thank all of our chamber members, our volunteers, our sponsors, supporters, partners, raffle donors. And by the way, if you've put your raffle tickets in, be sure and check when you leave this evening. You want to match it against what you have for tickets, and thank you for purchasing those. We do want to recognize some of our honored guests. We have Councillor Joe Kenny with us tonight. We have Bino Lamontang with us, and he's from the New Hampshire. Well, you know where he's from. You know, Brian Bresnahan. I don't know if Brian Bresnahan made it in or not, but he was planning on being here. He's a representative from Congresswoman Annie Custer's office. We have Representative Brad Bailey with us tonight. We have Representative Aaron Hennessy with us tonight. And we have Littleton Town Manager Andrew Dorsett with us. We also have the Chairman of the Littleton Selectmen, Skylar Sweet. And then Selectman Milt Bratz is here, and he was last year's Citizen of the Year, so awesome. And then we also have Littleton's Town Moderator, Gerald Wynn, who is in his 52nd year as moderator. I'd ask you now to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And please stay standing for the invocation.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be here tonight and just to be able to pray and bless our town and our businesses represented here. I've grown up in Littleton for most of my life. I remember in high school wanting to get out and get away, as I know a lot of kids growing up do. And I did that. I went to California for a few years, and then I came back. And I realized what an amazing town that Littleton is. It's where I live now. It's where I met my wife. It's where I want to raise our family. And in my mind, there's no better place to live. Littleton truly is a special place. I feel like it's just a light in the area that it just attracts people. And you know, the Bible says that life and death is in the power of the tongue. And I believe that words are powerful. So tonight, I just want to pray and bless our town, bless our businesses. And I really believe that what we speak comes true. So let's pray. God, we just thank you for this night. We just bless it. We thank you for our great town of Littleton. We just thank you for the winds of change, that new things are on the horizon. We thank you for favor and blessing over our town. We thank you for the new things that you're going to do. We thank you for the decision makers and the leaders that are in positions. We thank you that you are giving them wisdom, creative ideas. And God, I thank you for every business that is represented in this room tonight. God, I thank you that you are bringing blessing and increase, that 2018 will be the best year that this town has ever seen. Thank you, God, that there's increase in every way. So, God, we just thank you for what you're doing. We thank you for this night, and we bless you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Jimmy. You may be seated. The next on the agenda is that we'll have to vote for the budget and the new slate of officers. So if you, in your program, open up, it should be right in the middle. You will see the new slate of officers coming in for this coming year and also the proposed budget. I'll give you just a moment to look at that, and then I will need a motion to accept the new slate of officers. Okay, I have a motion. Could I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, and then the budget, we'll give you a moment to look at that. And then I would entertain a motion to approve the budget. Okay, thank you. And a second? Great, thank you. Any further discussion? All approved, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. We do want to thank our retiring directors, George Kirk, who has just been absolutely amazing on the board. We're going to miss him, and we want to thank him for his service. So thank you, George. And we also want to thank Chief John Monahan. He just recently took a position as chief in Moulton Borough, so unfortunately he won't be able to stay on the board either. And I know he and his wife could not make it tonight, but special appreciation for John. And thank you. Now, as outgoing president too, I have the honor and the privilege. A chamber board is made up of volunteers, as you know, and every single volunteer is extremely important. And as president or positions of leadership, I could not do what I do without the commitment of the volunteers. And each year, we give out a President's Award. This year is, well, with the dedication, many of the folks have families, they have full-time jobs, and the Littleton Area Chamber is no exception. The volunteers that we have still have a lot going on, and yet they're so dedicated. We work as a team with our executive director, Jess, and to produce positive results for our membership. So I had both the honor and the difficulty of choosing the President's Award this year, because really I could have given one to each and every one of my directors. This year's recipient has served with full abandon. The recipient joined the board 2.5 years ago and was willing to fill in the treasurer's position for an outgoing director. When the call goes out that we need volunteers to hang the flowers, help with the golf tournament, the art festival, gathering of the jack-o'-lanterns, cleaning out the opera house, or whatever it may be, she was always there. This person does own her own business. She is also very active at the Birch House, making a positive difference in the lives of women. She is a willing volunteer at the Senior Center. Along with her career and her volunteer work, she takes an active role in the life of her stepson. As a chamber and a community, we are beyond blessed to have her in our lives. It is an honor to give this year's President Award to Kimberly A. McNamara.
Well, that was a surprise. So, anybody who knows me, I'm not very good at public speaking, and so I'll keep this short. Thank you very much. It's been an honor to be a part of the chamber and a part of our town and giving back to our town. Thank you.
We would now like to welcome up Craig Clemmer of the Omni Mount Washington to say a few words and a greeting. Craig?
I asked to be put in the back of the room because I needed the exercise. So I always like to welcome everybody here to the Omni Mount Washington Resort. This is one of those events where it feels like we're actually having the neighbors in for dinner. So thank you so much for coming out this evening. You know, I was talking to Jerry Eames a little bit earlier this evening and realized the number of years that I've been here in the North Country of New Hampshire. Wouldn't regret any one of these days, but obviously, you know, maybe the minus 29 day, not the best day, but it was definitely lovely. And I've also realized that I've spent about half my life in New England. And it actually has made me take a little bit of a pause when asked a question this time of year. You know, where I'm from, football's like a religion. And people ask me, who are you rooting for? And I'm really torn with an answer. You know, I grew up skiing the mighty hills of central Pennsylvania. The first football game I ever went to, my father took me to, was an Eagles game. So, excuse me, I have the podium. This is the first year that I'm actually hoping for a tie, just so my Pennsylvania heritage can live up to my New England fervor. So this is the only time you'll ever see me not in a competitive stance in life. But I wish everyone has a wonderful evening, and go whichever team you're rooting for. And please make sure that you don't bet too harshly either way, because I think the Pats are going to win. So, all right. So please enjoy your evening. Thank you so much for coming. And on behalf of the 1,200 associates here at the Omni Mount Washington Resort, thank you for the honor of serving you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Please enjoy your dinner. Go ahead and continue. I guess they're serving dessert now. Go ahead and continue enjoying your dessert. I am going to introduce our guest speaker for the evening. Our keynote speaker this evening is a person who grew up in the snowy hill towns of western Massachusetts. He attended Boston's Emerson College in the mid-'80s and has lived in New Hampshire since 1990. Our speaker has had a love for broadcasting since he was just 12 years old. He had his own radio show by his senior year of high school. While in college, he worked as a Boston radio DJ as well as a helicopter traffic reporter. Our speaker then spent 8 years hosting a radio morning show on Seacoast 102 WZEA, where our speaker won the New Hampshire Association of Broadcasters Air Personality of the Year. While returning to college to study atmospheric sciences, our speaker worked for a weather company forecasting weather on radio stations up and down the East Coast, including in New York City and nationwide on AP Network News. Our speaker also spent several years doing weather on WHDH TV Boston and WGME TV in Portland, Maine. He also worked in helping develop the computer technology that TV stations use to broadcast the weather. He also designs many of the weather maps and graphics that you see today on WMUR TV. Our speaker in 2006 upgraded his credentials to the new AMS Certified Broadcast Meteorologist seal, which was a new and rigorous type of credential from the American Meteorological Society. He was the only third meteorologist in New England to do so. Our speaker has written 3 books. His first book was a children's book called Weather Facts and Fun. This is now used in many New Hampshire elementary schools as a textbook. The second book, Extreme New England Weather, was released in late 2010. Our speaker's third book was just released in 2017, and it's called Be Nice to the Weather Guy, a New England Christmas story. The proceeds of this book, which is really awesome, it goes to support the Children's Hospital at Dartmouth-Hitchcock. Our speaker has won several awards. He has also been voted 6 times as the best TV weathercaster by New Hampshire Magazine Readers Poll. He has been with WMUR for over 15 years, joining the Storm Watch 9 team in early 2001. He is passionate about analyzing the ever-changing weather patterns and how it affects our plans. Our speaker lives in southern New Hampshire with his wife, Diane, and their 4 children. It is with great honor to present our keynote speaker of the evening, Josh Judge.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. It's a great place to be able to have a dinner and give a speech and mingle and socialize and talk about business. What a great venue to be at. So I was thrilled when I was invited by Carrie and the entire Littleton area Chamber of Commerce to be here. So thank you for having me. And I thought in the next few minutes I would just tell you a little bit about what it's like to do the weather on television, especially here in New Hampshire. I think that part of the reason I was invited, is the winds of change. That seems to make sense to me. And the future part, well, I do forecast the future, or at least try to. It also makes sense to be here at the Mount Washington Hotel, I was thinking, because we are right next to Mount Washington, the home of the Northern Hemisphere's strongest wind ever recorded by man in April 12th, 1934. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of this. 231 mile per hour winds, which for a long time was the strongest wind gust ever recorded by man. Back about 10 years ago or so, down off the coast of Australia, they did record a slightly stronger one, but here in the Northern Hemisphere, that is still a record, and I'm sure a lot of you have probably, from this area, probably some of you have been to the top of Mount Washington. What an amazing experience, and the wind there is pretty amazing, as I'm sure you know. The temperature extremes are pretty interesting. And I don't know about you, but when it comes to the wind, I really think it blows. What? Oh. William Arthur Ward once said, "The pessimist complains about the wind, the optimist expects it to change, and the realist adjusts the sails." I think that's a good way to think of it in business too, isn't it? You kind of think of the climate. The wind is such an important thing here. It kind of blew me in here tonight, actually. It's in movies, Gone with the Wind, Inherit the Wind. There's all sorts of When the Wind Blows, Wind in the Willows. It's in our culture. It's in our songs. I was thinking about it earlier today. We have Ride with the Wind. Oh, the Association did that song Windy. Remember that? Dust in the Wind, Against the Wind, Bob Seger. She's Like the Wind, Blowing in the Wind, Candle in the Wind. Wind Beneath My Wings. There's a couple others. The Wind Cried Mary. There's a lot of wind songs out there. I'm kind of winded just talking about them. We use it in our speech every day. We use wind and weather, of course. There's a lot of, but specifically on the wind, we fall down and we get the wind knocked out of us. We get drunk, we're 3 sheets to the wind. We hear a rumor of something and we get wind of it. If you steal someone's thunder, you take the wind out of their sails. If you need to make your choice, you kind of, in business, you see which way the winds are blowing, or maybe politicians follow the political wind. When we take a chance, we throw caution to the wind, and if you've ever over-exercised, you probably got winded, and then you were sucking wind. And then, of course, you recover and get your second wind, which is good. Or perhaps you lose control and break wind. I love puns. I'm on cloud 9. Oh, that's a different speech, sorry. No, I think the wind is such a huge part of the weather, but obviously there's a lot more. And so I thought I'd tell you a little bit about what it's like to do the weather. Everybody thinks of the weather guy or gal and says, "Oh, what a great job. It's the only job you can be paid to be wrong." None of you have ever said that in this room. I realize that. You wouldn't do that. You can be wrong 50% of the time and still keep your job. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about how that really gets under my skin. No, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about what it's like, why we predict what we do, how we do it, and the challenges that are part of it, because it's fascinating, and there's a lot of people, by a show of hands, I'm guessing there's a lot of you here that are fascinated by the weather to some degree, right? There's got to be some of you, right? There we go. I'd say at least half or more of you. Everywhere I go, people come up and say, "I love the weather," and it fascinates me. And to be honest with you, I do too, obviously. I loved it more before I was on TV, for a lot of reasons. Partially because the fun and excitement of a storm incoming is what gets a meteorologist excited, as you know. We start to froth a little bit. But when you're on TV, it becomes a lot of work every time there's a storm. We are on TV nonstop, and we have a lot more to do. Our workload about triples during a storm. And so let that happen. I've been at the station coming up on 17 years. Let that happen a whole bunch of times every year, and after a while, you start going, "Oh boy, another storm next week. I'm going to have to get stuck out standing in it or working all kinds of extra hours." So actually, once you've been doing it for a long time in the broadcast business, we actually kind of enjoy, believe it or not, a nice stretch of sunny days, just like you. I look at that, and to me, that is paradise to see that on the 7-day forecast. So it's an unusual job to be on television to start with, putting the weather thing aside. It's different because, well, the basic fact that we're on TV. So people are watching, thousands of people. So it's different. It's different than some person that goes to work and does your job and goes home. Maybe you go out in public and you meet new people. Everywhere I go, a lot of people already know who I am. And that's fun, especially in the beginning. But after a while, everywhere you go, people know who you are, especially if there's a storm approaching. Those are the times I just don't go shopping, basically. So it's unusual that. There's weird hours in our business. There's getting up real early in the morning or staying up real late at night. One or the other. There's really no in between. If you wake up at 5 in the morning and turn on the TV, you're going to see us. We're there. But we don't just wake up and suddenly there. Obviously, there's a lot of prep work that goes into getting ready. So if we're going to be on TV at 5 o'clock, that means I'm going to be getting up at about 1 o'clock in the morning and coming in because there's a lot of preparations to do, which I'll talk about a little bit. And so it's very early in the morning, or the other side of it is you're very late at night. If I had my choice, I'd take the nighttime over the getting up at 1 in the morning, which kind of messes with your system just a little bit. Gotten used to it. You kind of get used to it over the years, but it's certainly something that when you get up that early in the morning and then you're on TV all morning, it's really, really tiring, and you start to worry about falling asleep while you're on TV, which I don't recommend, by the way. But we all have lives, and so there's going to be times where you have a late night out doing something, or an event, or a family function, or you're not feeling well. But the broadcast won't wait for you. You have to go in at the same time, start at the same time, no matter what, unless you're really sick and you have to call out sick. But it's a tough thing to do. It's a tough thing. Many of us, when we wake up, if we go, oh, I'm sick, you just call or text the boss, I'm not going to be in. But if I wake up at 1 or 2 in the morning and, oh, I don't feel sick, I have to go through my head, do I really want to wake somebody else up at this time and make them have to go in and do it? So it's a little different in broadcasting. I thought I'd talk a little bit about how we prepare for our job and how we forecast for it. Because a lot of people think that when we show up to work, we walk in, bunch of interns come out and roll out a red carpet for us or something, and we just kind of saunter in, give them our coats, and just go right on TV and start talking. Obviously, that is not the case. There is a lot of preparation to be done, and we do it ourselves. We do a lot of stuff ourselves. The forecasts are made entirely by us, the meteorologists, and that's something that I'm guessing you probably realize is not easy in New England, and especially in New Hampshire. New Hampshire presents some amazing challenges when it comes to the weather, and you guys live in some of the most challenging parts of it, which is why I had second thoughts about coming here and facing you. But I did anyway. The mountains and the ocean, but here, the mountains change the weather. I'm going to say something that I bet most of you that live around here anyway are going to instantly recognize, and that is that the weather here is very different than maybe even just the other side of the notch, correct? It can be really different, and that sometimes is very forecastable and sometimes is not. And you guys, for example, I was up here signing copies of my book in downtown Littleton about a month ago for Christmas gifts, and it was a nice sunny day the entire way up until I went through the notches, and it never changed since then. It was snowing here, of course, all day, and then I left after several hours of being in the Littleton area and got 5-10 miles away and back to sunshine the whole way home again. So when that happens, by the way, you guys are honored, because I like to call that your own private little snowstorm. Doesn't that make it sound better? But I thought you might be interested, some of you might know, but interested to hear why that happens. And there's a real good reason for it. And it has to do with the winds. Amazing. Imagine that. So winds blow from different directions, obviously, and at different speeds. And in order to teach you why that happens, I need to sort of go over this again, review with you that think of a hot summer day. You've got a warm day and the air starts rising. You can even see it rising off the asphalt, those little waves in the air. The air rises, and all of a sudden you see a cloud start to billow up. And before you know it, it starts to downpour out of nowhere. Or there's a thunderstorm that pops up. Rising air cools as it's going up into the atmosphere. And as the air cools, it can't hold moisture. And so it suddenly condenses into a cloud. And as more air rises up, it can't hold the moisture. And so it starts to reinforce that cloud. And before you know it, the cloud can't hold all the moisture and it's raining or it's snowing. And so we all can picture that on a summer day with the rain. You can't picture that as well in the in the winter, because you don't think of those hot days with the rising air. But something happens here in the mountains, and that is, as the wind blows and it runs into a mountain, there's nowhere else for it to go. It can't go through the mountains. It can't go, some of it goes around the mountains, but a lot of it goes up the mountains. And the same exact scientific process that happens on a summer day when you have rising air, the air can't hold the moisture anymore and it condenses into a cloud. The same thing happens as that wind, which is air, moves up the mountain. It happens in a different way, but it is the same end result. All of a sudden, the air, as it goes up the mountain with the wind, can't hold the moisture anymore, and clouds start to form, and precipitation starts to occur. It could be rain or it could be snow. And it depends on which way the winds are blowing. I detect a theme. If the winds are blowing out of the south, most likely here will be dry, not here, but over in Littleton, right? Just that way a little, will be drier and maybe even warmer. And that's because the winds are coming from the south, they're bumping into the mountains, they're rising up and they're condensing into clouds and moisture. And then as the wind comes down the other side, it dries out and even warms up a little bit. But if the winds come from a different direction, primarily the north or the northwest or even the west, the opposite happens. The clouds form on your side, and all of a sudden precipitation starts to form. But then it comes down the mountain and the exact opposite happens. That air dries out and even warms up. So that's why you can have it be cloudy on the top of a mountain. How many times have you seen a cloud just hovering over the top of a mountain? And perhaps it stays there all day and you're like, why doesn't it blow away? Well, that's because it's constantly reforming. And then the air comes down, parts of it dissolve away, but a new part of the cloud forms again. And so I just thought that might be interesting for you because it affects your weather in Littleton area so much. And it all depends on the wind direction. So it probably will sound familiar to you, perhaps when there's a big nor'easter going on and the rest of the state is getting 6 to 12 inches of snow, perhaps the Littleton area just gets a little bit, a couple inches maybe even less, right? But then the storm pulls away and it snows the next day. And that's because the winds that are circulating around the storm, as the storm pulls away, the winds change direction and are coming from the other direction. So quite often the Littleton area and other places, we call that being shadowed. You're sort of in the rain or the snow shadow of the storm or of the clouds. We actually have a weather watcher in Lancaster and another one in Littleton that contact us all the time, and I hear from him all the time, and he says, here's your report from the Littleton shadow. He gets it. So anyway, it just shows how localized our weather can be. And that's one of the challenges we face when we're on TV, trying to portray what the weather is going to be over the next few days or week, is that our state is so vastly different from spot to spot. I mentioned the ocean before. The ocean can change the weather in a major way as well. The ocean can take a snowy day and the wind starts blowing in off the relatively warmer ocean and change it into rain for the coast. Or if the wind is blowing strong enough, it can bring rain farther inland. And so there's localized things like this all over our state. And that's one of the challenges we face as broadcasters, is to get out the information for all the different areas. And typically, when I'm on TV, they give me, 2.5 minutes to do a forecast for the entire state for the next 7 days. If I'm lucky, they might give me 2:45 or 3 minutes, and it's very strictly timed. So that really challenges us. Now, in this day and age of internet, Facebook, web pages, Snapface, and all those other things, we can get the word out a little more in detail for certain areas. Of course, a lot of you probably have apps on your phone that try to do that as well. And sometimes those are good, and sometimes those are bad. The apps on your phone, in particular, use computers and are never looked at by a human being, particularly never looked at by a human being that lives anywhere near New England, or even the country sometimes. And so that can mean that you're just going to get straight output from a computer, and it doesn't realize things like upsloping and downsloping, which is one of the non-technical terms that we use for what I was just talking about with those winds causing rain and snow. And so that's why sometimes those are going to be wrong. And that's why sometimes we're going to be wrong. Very, very rarely, right? No, I know that we're sometimes wrong, and what we do when we're wrong is we use the knowledge accumulated from that storm and try to learn from it. What else can we do? As you've all heard the saying, weather is not an exact science. It's true. It's got a lot better. It's got a lot better, particularly in the last 10 or 15 years, in the advent of computers getting faster and faster. But it's also sometimes very confusing because of that. We use something called computer models. I'm guessing many of you have heard us use the term, myself, one of my colleagues, or other stations, or anywhere else. Everybody talks about the weather models or the computer models, and what are they? So I thought I'd tell you a little brief overview on what they are, how they're very good, and sometimes they're not very good. So a weather model is simply that. We take the weather that's going on right now and we feed all the data into these giant supercomputers, and each of these supercomputers, they're all run by different governments of the world. And they're computer farms of the most powerful computers in the world, and they're almost as big as this function room. It's a lot of computer power. And it's an amazing amount of information that they can process in a very short amount of time, something not possible by human beings. In fact, it would take 1,000 mathematicians 1,000 years to do the amount of equations that they compute for each computer model run. And I know that's true because I read it on the inside cap of a bottle of Snapple. But I did verify it on Wikipedia, so. So these computer models, the fastest in the world, take in a lot of data. We take all the weather stations that are at all the airports in the country, and there's about 1,400 of those. We also take weather observations from some government-approved weather spotters around the country. We take ships at sea, have a lot of weather stations on them. We put sensors on airplanes all over, and we use a lot of other data too. We also launch weather balloons. The problem is you can't have, first of all, we can't have official weather observations from every town or every street corner because the cost would simply be too outrageous. We currently in New Hampshire right now, the official ones, there's 14 airports that they put them in, all right? And Whitefield and Berlin being the two closest here, Plymouth State College here in New Hampshire, and the top of Mount Washington. There's an official one right behind us. And so there's 13 or 14 in New Hampshire, and you're thinking, well, there should be a lot more than that, but it's very expensive. The FAA puts these in, and they're very expensive to run. If you've ever tuned into our TV station and seen one of those weather stations broken, we show the temperatures from them. Sometimes they're missing, and that's because they break, and the FAA runs around fixing them as fast as they can. But we've had one last year, Laconia Airport, their airport sensor went down, and it took them a month to fix it, which was very frustrating to us. And quite often we'll see them go down after a storm. I think Berlin died after the ice or the super cold last week or the week before. And they get to them as fast as they can. But that just shows you they have trouble keeping up with what they have now. If they were to add more, it would be an extreme expense and tougher to keep up with. But since they don't, that leaves a lot of holes in the state. There's a lot of places that have no weather observations coming in and being put into those weather computers that are all official. And why do we use official observations? Well, we do use a lot of government approved weather spotters from around the state as well. But think of it this way, they all have to be as close to each other as possible, because you can't have one type of weather station over here and a different brand or method being used over here, because then it's apples and oranges. We need all the data to be exactly the same so that 14 degrees here means the same thing as 14 degrees there, and it's not different. And we find that a lot of, and why don't we use home ones? Because of that. Because there's a lot of standards that these airports use. It needs to be 15 feet off the ground. It needs to be over a grassy surface away from building. It needs to be housed inside a little building with shuttered louvers and an air aspirator and all these technical things that they require. And that's why it's so expensive. But because of that, we know that 14 degrees here is the same thing as 14 degrees in Dallas, Texas. They're going to be the exact same reading or very close. Meanwhile, we get a lot of weather spotters, and we very much value them. But sometimes they'll call us up and they'll go, well, you're saying it's 14 degrees, but I've got 82. What's the deal there? And so I talk to them a little bit, and I say, well, can you tell me a little bit about your situation? Where do you have your thermometer? Well, it's right over there next to my air conditioner or my heater. And I'm like, is the vent, like the exhaust from your air conditioner or your heater, blowing on it? Well, yeah, but that keeps the snow off of it. Okay, that's why it's 82, sir. So that's why we need to keep it really strict. So the reason I'm telling you all this is because that means there's a lot of holes in the data. There's a lot of places that don't have official observations. So when we put that data into the supercomputers, we're missing some spots. Also, they launch weather balloons. I'm sure you've heard of those before. They launch them up. The closest one to here, well, there's a couple. They launch them in Burlington, Vermont, Gray, Maine, Caribou, Maine, but they don't, down in Cape Cod, Albany, New York. Those are all the closest ones to here. You can tell there's even bigger gaps there. And those rise up, and they have little weather instruments in them, and they radio back. And the entire way, as they go up higher up in the atmosphere, they're radioing back the temperatures, the wind speeds, pressure, humidity, all these things. Which is great information, especially to find out what's going on way up a mile or two in the sky where the jet stream is, which is very important to us. But again, there's only 5 of them in New England. So we're missing a lot of data. So when we put all that into the supercomputers, there's a lot of data for them to run, and it still takes them a while to do it. They've got about all they can handle right now, the supercomputers. But there could be a lot more. And the reason I tell you that is that means there's a lot of gaps in the data. And so when you put in, what's that saying, garbage in, garbage out? If you don't put enough data in, what comes out is not going to be perfect. So the answer would be we would need a lot more weather stations, and we would need much faster computers, because as it is, these are the fastest computers in the world, and even though we're not putting in enough data technically, they still take about 2 hours to spit out all the information of what the forecast will be like. So what that tells you is that there's still a ways to go, even though we're improving very fast, and they're always making better supercomputers and finding ways. There's also a lot of gaps in that data, and so there's going to be errors. And if you spit out some data, and it's got some errors for what's going to happen 6 hours from now, which keep in mind is now 4 hours away because it took 2 hours for the computer to run, when you go another 6 hours out, those errors multiply a little bit. Exponentially, they get bigger and bigger. And so that's why we tell you when we look at a forecast a week out, don't completely trust it. You can use it as a guidance, but when you go more than 3 or 4 days out, you're going to start running into a lot of things that are not possibly might not happen, especially if it's stormy. If it's sunny, there's a higher chance because you may have a big area of high pressure overhead. But if there's a storm nearby, 7 days from now, what's to say that that storm doesn't just veer 50 miles farther south between now and a week from now? So people say, but What happened? It changes every day as it gets closer. Well, maybe that storm just moved 50 miles farther south. It's still there. When we forecast a storm a week out, it usually happens. But usually one of two things happens. The storm veers a little farther south or north or east or west and just misses us, or it slows down or speeds up. It may, that's the most common thing, by the way. If we see a storm about a week out, next Friday, for example, and then you look a day or two from now and it has rain on Saturday and Friday looks good, well, that means the storm slowed down a little bit on our computer models. It's still going to happen. It's still the exact same storm. It's just not getting here as fast as the computer models originally thought. So we have those computer models. Again, they help us in ways that I can't explain to you, because without them, there's no way we could forecast this far in advance. Before computers existed, it really wasn't possible. There was a lot of guesswork. And then in the 1940s, some Norwegian scientists came up with the theory that if we ever had this way to crunch these numbers, we could predict weather farther out. And then the world had to wait about 15, 20 years until computers were invented and far enough along that they could start using them for weather prediction. So it does tell us things that are amazing because there's no way we would ever know. For example, nor'easters, which affect a good portion of New England, typically don't even form until 6 to 12 hours before they strike us, which is amazing. Usually they form just to our south and then run up the coast and skim by us. So the fact that we're able to tell you 7 days in advance that a storm might form 7 days from now and then strike us 6 to 12 hours later, to me is amazing. But it's not always perfect. It's not going to tell us the exact latitude and longitude. It's going to be off. And in the model's view, it was right on, because in the model, it's just a little blip of a difference. But to us, it's 50, 100 miles farther south, meaning a sunny day versus a foot of snow. The other thing with computer models is we have a lot of them now. We have about 10 of them that meteorologists use to look at. And it's not out of the ordinary to look at these computer models the day before a storm and have 3 or 4 of them say, we're going to get a lot of snow, get ready. 2 or 3 of them say, it's going to miss you completely, don't listen to those jokers. And then 1 of them or 2 of them saying, well, it'll skim you and give you an inch or 2. So imagine me. I told you in the beginning of this talk that I get up 1 or 2 in the morning if I'm working on a weekday, and I get up at 2 or 3 in the morning on a weekend. So I'm the only person awake that knows anything about weather, or at least I think I know a little about weather, in the station on an early morning, and I'm looking at 10 different computer models that are telling me 10 different things, and it's going to affect people like you, business owners, students, workers. It's going to affect them in such a major way, and yet I come in the middle of the night and I look at this data and I go, oh my God, what's going to happen? Because I've got all these computer models telling me different things. It's pretty stressful. So we do our best, but every once in a while we are going to guess the wrong model or trust the wrong model. What we do a lot of is monitoring these computer models, okay? And we watch them, even on our days off, and see which computer models are performing the best. And of those, we kind of, for a while, latch onto them until they do us wrong, which they always do. But if we have a storm coming and this particular model, the Euro, for example, maybe, has been right the last 3 or 4 days, it has nailed everything, I'm probably going to have more trust toward that computer model than the one that sold me up the river a couple days ago with another storm. So that's one way we'll do it. We also do a lot of analyzing of these computer models and saying, okay, it predicted this to happen 3 hours out. We are now 3 hours out. Is that happening? So we check how it was initialized and how it started. So that gives you a little idea of the types of things we have to deal with on a daily basis. It's not always just when there's a storm. It can be every day. I can come in and the different computer models will tell me a range of 10, 15, 20 degrees different from each other of what the high temperature will be for that day. And we're in a world now where people like you, rightly so, expect to know a specific degree of how high it's going to be. And if I say it's going to be 53, in the back of my head, I know that one computer model was telling me, it's only going to get to 35. And then another one saying, it'll be 70. So it can be really stressful as a forecaster. Now, I don't give this as an excuse. I just want to tell you what we deal with. And the ways we handle it are by following the computer model trends. And every once in a while, I have to tell you that none of the computer models are exactly right for that week, and so what we'll have to do is compromise a little bit between the two. Just like maybe in one of your businesses you have to compromise with some business decisions, we have to do the same thing. We have to go, all right, I like how this computer model is moving the storm, but this computer model I like because it's colder, so it looks like more like snow. So I'm going to take the position of this storm, but I'm going to put this computer model's forecast for colder weather and say it's going to stay all snow, knowing that it's possible that it could warm up and be rain. But we have to go on. We're paid to go on TV and tell you something's going to happen. Now, what we try to do at my TV station, we try to tell you when there's some uncertainty. And there's different schools of thought about that. Some TV stations don't do that. We elect to tell you and just try to be honest with you and say, look, this is what we think is most likely to happen, but there's a little uncertainty, especially about how this storm pulls away. Could it change? It may change to snow for a couple hours. It could stay as rain. You get the idea. So that's the way we've elected to handle it, and hopefully someday we'll get to a point where we never have to do that, but we are not at that point. We are certainly a lot farther along than we were years ago, and it continues to advance quite a bit. So that's really interesting. I wanted to tell you a little bit about how I go in there and take that data and put it on the air. And meanwhile, if anyone has a question as I'm going, please feel free. I, at this point, want to just open the floor up. If you have a question, raise your hand and I'll call on you as we go along here. But I'm going to wrap it up with just a few more comments here. I thought I'd tell you a little bit about how we go on TV and then convey this information. So I've told you about how we take the computer model, we try to make forecasts. All the forecasts that we put on TV are ours. We don't look at what the National Weather Service says. We don't look at what other TV stations are saying or computer apps or your phone apps. We don't look at that stuff. And the reason is it's going to bias us in one direction or another. And we have all been burned enough times doing that that we know to trust ourselves and live or die with our own forecast. So that's one thing we do. There's a lot of other stuff we have to do. We then, the whole second part of my job, it's sort of a two-pronged job. There's the forecasting part, and then there's the being on TV part. And that part of it is also very unique in the fact that I'm sure not a whole lot of you would take kindly to somebody just placing a camera in your place of business and everybody watching you. But that's what we do. And so being on TV is something that takes a really thick skin. People are going to criticize you. Some people are going to love you. Some people are going to hate you. But what we do is we go on TV and we do our best to present it. Now, when we give the weather, unlike the TV newscasters and the sportscasters and people like that, they get to read a script. There's a teleprompter in front of them. They look into the camera. You've probably seen this. The teleprompter scrolls and they read the words. But as meteorologists, we don't get that luxury because we need to see what we're pointing at, and we're standing in front of a blank green wall. I'm guessing most of you know that. It's called a chroma wall, and we stand in front of this blank wall, which if you were just in the studio with us and couldn't see anything, you'd think we were just some crazy person waving at a green wall. But to the viewer, obviously, there's weather maps behind us. So we take our computer, and our computer is connected to the control room, and they superimpose that over anything they see that's green. This is the same technology you see at Hollywood movies when they're battling aliens or on alien foreign worlds or any of the other technology stuff. They're all actors performing in front of green screens. We do the same thing, basically, although we don't get put into movies and get paid millions of dollars for it. Unfortunately, I've been lobbying for that. And so we need to be able to see what we're pointing at. So the way they do that is they take that teleprompter that's in the camera that the newscasters read, and they change it into a TV screen. And so when I look into the camera, I see myself, and I see the maps behind me. So if I go like this, I can just watch my hand until it gets to the right spot and stop and point and say right there. And it's a little bit of a learned talent, obviously. It's backwards, like a mirror, too. Everything's backwards and reversed. But since they take away the teleprompter, that means that everything we do is ad-libbed. And that adds another degree of difficulty to it. So we're talking about a storm that we're having trouble forecasting, perhaps, in front of a wall that doesn't really exist, and we're ad-libbing the whole way. You put all these things together, it starts to get a little more challenging. And now you understand why every once in a while a weathercaster will say something just stupid. Because we don't know what we're going to say until we get up there, much like this speech, by the way. May have to rethink that next time. We don't know what we're going to say. Everything is ad-libbed, and our entire body's on camera, so we can't just kind of be like this, and slouched over. Your entire body's on camera, so you're aware of that, and you're aware that you're pointing at things and that you're telling a story. So our best, the thing we try best to do is to tell a story using the maps. We look at the maps in the monitor, because they're not really there, and we tell a story. And we have a little clicker, and we're advancing along with maps that we made ourselves before we went on TV. We took what we thought we were going to forecast, made the maps, and then stood on front. And finally, we're wearing something in our ear called an IFB. I'm guessing most of you have probably seen a little curly wire that goes up the side of our neck. That's called an IFB. And that is the little speaker in my ear, and that allows the producers to talk to me while I'm ad-libbing. And they can time me. So they count down and time me. Hold on. And always got to have one of those. So they time me in my ear. They'll go, all right, 1 minute left, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and then the equivalent of shut up. And I need to be done by then. So it's a balancing act of trying to take the entire state, all the variations in the weather around the state, and wrap that up into 2.5 minutes that describes every part of the state, what the forecast will be like for the next 7 days, and just do it off the top of your head, and do it over and over again all morning. That's my job in a nutshell, folks. Thanks to meet you. And so that's why every once in a while you might hear us stutter, or that's actually solely responsible for half of my bad jokes. I fully blame that. So I'll end with just saying that yes, sometimes the weather forecast is wrong. We try to be right 70 or 80% of the time. We realize we're going to be wrong some of the other times. But at least now you understand a little bit more about why, and that we do put a strong effort into it. I also just wanted to quick mention, I just realized I wanted to mention that my book that I wrote, which you heard about, that benefits CHAD, I was asked to bring a few copies, so I do have 25 copies here. If anybody would like to purchase a copy after this dinner, I'll be here for a short while signing them. I think I've got 25 copies. They're $20. Every bit of profit goes to Children's Hospital at Dartmouth. So thank you very much for, thank you. But anyway, I thank you very much for being an audience, a great audience, and for listening to my story. And I'll just leave you with telling you that if the weather forecast is ever wrong, it's not my asphalt.
Thank you, Josh, for coming and joining us for our annual dinner. It was truly a pleasure. Now I'd like to welcome our Executive Director, Jessica Bunker.
Hello, my friends. Is everybody having a good evening? Yes. I'm beginning to second guess following a TV star. It's a hard act to follow. No pressure, right? No pressure. Got my clicker, we've got it all. All right, as many of you know, my name is Jessica Bunker, and I am the Executive Director at the Littleton Area Chamber of Commerce. It is a pleasure being here with you tonight. The value of the Littleton Area Chamber is based on a series of 20 programs, 18 annual events, and strategic partnerships, which we conduct to achieve 3 important goals: attracting, growing, and supporting local business, providing valuable resources to our membership, and promoting our 7-town area for residents, visitors, and relocation. So 2017 has been an amazing year of change and growth at the Chamber. And with over 40 initiatives on which we could report, it's very difficult to choose only a few. It's literally like asking me to choose my favorite ice cream, and believe me, I love them all. So tonight I'm going to highlight some of our new and improved member benefits. And my technology, thank you guys, you're amazing. In June of last year, we moved to our new office space at the historic Thayer's Inn, which you can see on your left, complete with a new Pollyanna exhibit, which we designed in collaboration with Pollyanna of Littleton, Inc. Our new location is more accessible to members and visitors, affords us room to grow, and in consolidating our venues, we are able to utilize our volunteers more effectively and expand our hours of operation. We also partnered with the Granite State Ambassadors to establish our new office as an official GSA Welcome Center. This partnership literally puts our area on the map at the state level. Benefits of our collaboration with the Granite State Ambassadors include representation of the Chamber, and thereby you, our members, at the Manchester International Airport, a major gateway to the region. Volunteer certification and management resources for our Chamber volunteers. Greater statewide marketing through listing on the GSA website and advertising in the GSA newsletter. In 2017, we also completed the transition to our new member database system, Chambermaster, and many of you here may have already logged in. So with Chambermaster, each of our 300 members is given their own personal login to their business's account. And this direct connection allows our members to market their businesses by keeping basic information such as mailing address, business hours, contacts, search words up to date. So here on the left, you see the homepage of our member login portal, which should look familiar to all of you, and I'm sure it does. And on the right is our member directory category search. So since our transition to Chambermaster in 2017, we have had over 19,000 visits to our member directory. Chambermaster also allows our members to add events, deals, job postings to their accounts. These events, deals, and job openings then automatically appear on the Chamber's website, on our Go White Mountains app, and member events also appear on our member event newsletter distributed by New Hampshire Grand, as well as the New Hampshire Grand website. So here on the left, you can see an example of the Chamber's most recent event, our Business After Hours at the Tannery Marketplace. Thank you to the 50+ guests that joined us on Wednesday night. And on the right, you can see a St. Patrick's Day deal here at Bretton Woods in March. So since our transition to Chambermaster, we have had over 71,000 visits to our member events page, 2,900 visits to our member deals page, 3,000 visits to our member jobs page, and 500 visits to our weather link. I didn't even do that on purpose, but that was a good segue. In 2017, it marked the launch, there we go, of our member Go White Mountains app as part of the Chamber's goal to enhance our region-wide marketing. This project was a direct result of feedback we received from the UNH First Impressions program, which let us know that we had the opportunity to improve our area wayfinding. There are a number of unique features to this app. Once downloaded, it not only shows member businesses as pinpoints on a locus map, as you can see here on the right, it also allows visitors to create and save an itinerary of the member businesses they would like to visit. In under 1 year, over 2,500 people have downloaded this Go White Mountains app. So as I alluded to earlier, in 2017, the Chamber also orchestrated a partnership with New Hampshire Grand, which is a marketing services program of the Northern Community Investment Corporation, to provide higher return to you, our Chamber members. And benefits of this affiliation include distribution of the Chamber's member event newsletter to an additional 8,500 subscribers, posting of Littleton events and business deals on the New Hampshire Grand's website, which you see here, and our Chamber's participation in New Hampshire Grand's monthly tourism development team meetings. So we are looking forward to a robust year in 2018 with many exciting initiatives in which you may all participate just around the corner. If you happen to be a Littleton resident, there are 3 economic development articles on which you may vote at town meeting. The first warrant article you'll see is from the Littleton Industrial Development Corporation, which requests support for the transfer of industrial land to LIDC. LIDC works to foster a diverse local economy, fostering an economic engine which employs over 1,200 area residents and contributes to an annual payroll of $60 million. The Chamber has also submitted 2 warrant articles, one for downtown beautification, projects including our downtown flowers, our pianos, our hanging umbrellas, and holiday decorations. These elements create an experience visitors remember and share. They also bring us accolades, such as having Main Street chosen to represent the state of New Hampshire in the National Life Group's 2017 Main Streets Across America. Our second warrant article requests support for the Chamber's downtown event efforts, including the gathering of the jack-o'-lanterns and the annual holiday parade. According to foot traffic estimates, we attracted over 2,000 visitors to the gathering of the jack-o'-lanterns, and you can see the pumpkins in the river there on the left, and well over 1,000 visitors to the holiday parade. And for every $1 these visitors spend locally, an estimated 68% of that stays in our local economy. You'll also notice inside your program that there is a list of events, including the Chamber's joint open house with Thayer's Inn on March 7th, and the Granite State Ambassador Training at the Mountain View Grand on April 30th and May 1st. So through your support, the Littleton Area Chamber is able to pioneer innovative strategies and partnerships to benefit our members. This is the wave of the future. I would like to introduce 2 distinguished guests, Fred Coker and Dr. Jonna Herrick Phelps. Fred Coker is the Business and Corporate Partnerships Advisor to Granite State College. He is the owner and of the marketing and public affairs business Coker and Company, Inc. He's the co-founder of the New Hampshire Forum on the Future, which just featured economist Brian Gottlieb and U.S. Senator Jeanne Shaheen this morning in Bedford. He's the founder of the New Hampshire Presidential Primary Forum, Politics and Eggs, which meets every 4 years. He is the co-founder of the New Hampshire Coalition for Business and Education, and Fred was voted the New Hampshire Business Leader of the Year in 2007, and is also the producer and host of WMUR TV's interview segment, New Hampshire Business, every Sunday morning for the past 24 years. Dr. Jonna Herrick Phelps is the Vice Provost for Academic Affairs at Granite State College. In her role as Vice Provost, she has oversight of graduate studies, faculty affairs, instructional design, and corporate and business partnerships. Her book, Seen But Not Heard, The Implemented Strategies and Situational Factors Executive Women Use to Be Heard by Their Male Colleagues in the Workplace, was published in 2007. Before coming to the college, she was the COO for Phelps Enterprises, a chain of retail stores in Vermont and New Hampshire. Jonna and her family have been residents of Littleton for 30 years. So Fred, Jonna, would you please come join me to present the exciting initiative we have planned for 2018?
It's nice to be here, and Josh did a great job. We're lucky to have Josh as a meteorologist in New Hampshire. Believe me, I am in the studio many times when he's doing his forecasts, and I pay attention. It's nice to be here tonight. I've lived in Concord, I've lived in Portsmouth, I've lived in Barrington, and I lived in Ohio for a while too. But I have discovered Littleton. And I must say, you have a wonderful community. I looked at your Chamber website today. And things like Littleton's Main Street was ranked as one of the best in the nation by Fodders. One of the best places to move in retirement in the USA by the New York Times in 2017. One of America's best towns in the USA by Outside Magazine, and so forth and so on. You really are making your mark, and so congratulations. We want to add to that. I'm here representing Granite State College along with Jonna, and we're going to announce something tonight, a partnership with all of you. Granite State College has a goal. One of our goals is to serve the North Country, and we're going to be doing that in ways that Jonna will describe in just a minute. For those of you who don't know Granite State College, we are part of the University System of New Hampshire. You may remember us as the College for Lifelong Learning some years, decades ago. We're now a full-fledged four-year college with programs all the way from certificates to associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, and master's degrees now. And we are the most affordable college in the state. So we have a lot to offer, and about 90% of our students are working adults. So we are the incumbent workforce college, I call it. 90%, they're online, they're working full-time, but they're doing their education online. And we also have academic advisors that roam the state, so they can go face-to-face with an academic advisor as well as doing their work online. So it's a customized online education. And as a result, we have been ranked by U.S. News and World Report now for 3 years straight as the best online college program in New Hampshire, college and universities in New Hampshire, and one of the best 100 in the country. We're going to be offering our professional development program here in the North Country, and we're starting right here with Littleton and in the Littleton area. And to describe what we're going to be doing, Jonna Phelps, our Vice Provost.
Thank you, Fred. This fall, we launched Granite State College Learning Solutions Professional Development, which includes customized training for organizations who seek specific workshops or trainings that they've identified, and we're able to go in and help them identify what those specific needs are and develop programs and then offer them to them online, or we can go in and actually work with them at their own organization. We've also launched our open enrollment workshops, and as Fred mentioned, we're very excited to launch our first workshop here in the North Country on February 22nd. It's Managing Multiple Generations in the Workplace. And we're also going to be offering these open enrollment professional development workshops throughout the state. Tonight, I am very honored and excited to be able to announce a partnership between Granite State College and the Littleton Area Chamber. We will be offering 10% off on all of our professional development workshops to the members of the Chamber. One way that we're hoping to kick off tonight, actually, do you have it handy, Fred? We're wanting to celebrate our partnership, so we are going to have a drawing for a free workshop, and we invite you. There's a few cards in there, so we're going to pass it around, and we'll have a drawing at the end of the evening. We'll be located over here, so if there are any questions, and also the box, make sure you add the drawing. So as I close, I'd like to say thank you so much for the opportunity to be here this evening. We are very excited to be working with you and look forward to working with the Chamber. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening.
And you get a free education if you put your card in.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're now going to do the Student of the Year. Beginning in January 2002, the Chamber instituted an annual recognition program to honor a student from the senior class at Littleton High School who is an active participant in his or her community, displays a desire to learn through academic performance, while serving as a role model for other students and is highly respected by faculty and peers. Not only are they recognized for the Outstanding Student of the Year, but they receive a financial award from the generous Eames family. At this time, I'd like to welcome Vanessa Sandville and Jennifer Carbonneau to present this award.
Good evening. My name is Vanessa Sandville, and I'm a science teacher and the National Honor Society faculty advisor at Littleton High School. Tonight, it's my honor to help present the Student of the Year Award to Miss Riley Clark. I've gotten to know Riley pretty well in the 3 years since I first met her. She is resilient and hardworking, tenacious, and a little stubborn. She's also compassionate, selfless, and mature beyond her years. Riley is one of the best examples of a young person being content with who she is, while at the same time understanding how and where she needs to grow. Because of this innate ability and her determined spirit, she is unfailing in her efforts to be the best role model she can for everyone around her. And it is these qualities that distinguish her here tonight as the Student of the Year recipient. I know that the Chamber places great importance on the community service record of the candidates for this prestigious award, and Riley has an impressive record of over 150 hours to date. To me, though, the hours themselves are not the most important part of her record. It is the enthusiasm and willingness with which she serves our community that is truly impressive. I've been with Riley at several of these service events. I have watched her graciously serve meals to the elderly at the senior center, joyfully interact with the youngsters at Literacy Day, eagerly pack meals for severely malnourished children at the Mobile Pack event, not to mention unwisely jumping into the ocean midwinter in support of the Special Olympics. This work is not done simply to occupy space on her resume. It is done with a cheerful heart and a desire to improve the lives of those around her. I would like to offer my congratulations to Riley, not only for this remarkable accomplishment, but for also the exceptional example that she has been throughout her high school years to everyone who knows her. I know her accomplishment will not stop here with our school and our community, but I am thankful and proud that they started here. It is now my privilege to introduce to you our Student of the Year recipient, Miss Riley Clark.
As we recognize Riley Clark, and Riley, we're all proud of your accomplishments, and I am honored to recognize you as our community's Student of the Year. But as we as a whole recognize Riley, I want you to stand if you're a family or friend of Riley. Yeah, I'm calling you to stand. I want you to stand. I want you to stand if you have watched her grow through the years. Please stand. I need you to see this, Riley. If you are an educator and supporter of our Waves of the Future, I need you to stand. I need you to stand. You are all supporters of our Waves of the Future. It takes a community to support our waves. It takes our wins. This room is full of the wins, all of you. We're full of the wins necessary to create the waves. That might be meteorology talk. Each of you are our students' role models. A special thank you to the Eames family for supporting our Student of the Year and the Chamber for recognizing Riley. So join me in embracing Riley our Student of the Year, our future, our wave.
Now I'd like to welcome Carmen Menard to present the second annual George and Janice Kirk Volunteer of the Year Award.
Good evening, everyone. As a volunteer, it's just such a pleasure to announce this George and Janice Kirk Volunteer Award. As a volunteer, you give selflessly. This year, the Littleton Chamber has once again selected the recipient for the volunteer award named the George and Janice Kirk Volunteer Award. Each year, we look over the volunteers, and it is one of the most difficult decisions to make because we have so many volunteers that help throughout the year and are great people and wonderful volunteers. They give selflessly. Many of you are here tonight, and on behalf of the Chamber, we want to thank you all. We have many volunteers that always go above and beyond to serve. I am going to name a few of the boards and committees that this person serves on. To begin with, this person serves in the home. Good place to start, right? The community, the churches, and many other places. You've probably seen this person. This person is a true servant leader. This year, this person has superseded our expectations. First, let me tell you some of the volunteer work this person has done. Served on the Chamber Board, served our country in the military, served in the county, served as the president of the Rotary Club in Littleton, serves the churches, served on the United Way Impact Committee, served on the Mayhew Board, serves on the Grafton County Senior Citizens Council. This person likes things done well and has many skills and talents. This person is humble, and you will always hear this person praising others. This person gives physically, financially, emotionally, and any way to make life better for the community and the organizations that he is serving. If you have not guessed who this person is yet, let me invite Robert B. Mule to come up to receive his award, who has truly earned it. We invite Rob to say whatever he'd like to tonight.
I guess all I'd like to say is that my inspiration to be involved and give back to my community is driven by the many people, other people who volunteer. So that keeps me going and makes me want to contribute more. Thank you.
And you know, we never want to forget, because with a volunteer, if they're married, the spouse gives selflessly too. Could we have Alice come up, please? Alice and I kind of connived behind Bob's back. He wasn't aware of this.
At this time, I'd like to welcome Dave Harkless to present the 2017 Citizen of the Year Award.
Beginning in January 1969, the Littleton Area Chamber of Commerce instituted an annual recognition for outstanding contributions to community life known as the Citizen of the Year. Given to an individual in the Littleton community with outstanding citizenship, superb vision, and a model record of personal service, this award is a wonderful way to recognize an individual who has gone above and beyond the call of duty in our community. This year's award goes to not one person, but three. I first met them when I settled in this region in 1985 to start a new chapter in my life. The ad for the restaurant where I landed a job said, "Come to the North Country and learn to ski. Employee housing available." Sounded good to me. To earn some extra cash for a ski pass, I also ended up grabbing a part-time job at a small red shop in Lincoln. There they taught me how to sell and work on skis, clothing, and sporting goods, and even how to assemble bikes. Many years passed, but our lives changed. We remained friends. Little did I know how instrumental they would be in my life. 6 years ago, I was sitting at the top of a closed ski hill, wondering why it wasn't being used. I remembered that someone had tried to pass a warrant article to lease the hill and get it going again. It was close, but it didn't quite pass. So I called this person up, pitched the idea to try again, and he quickly said he was in. His brother had a daughter who was in high school and found out the ski team might be disbanded, so he jumped in too. The third knew his way around municipal and legal matters, so he offered guidance and volunteered to figure out how to get the lights back up and shining. Last year, thanks to their service and the help of many others, Mount Eustis opened with its permanent rope tow, warming hut, and a fully lit slope. This year, through the help of their shop, support from Bretton Woods, a generous Littleton grant, and collaboration with other programs, Mount Eustis started a seasonal ski equipment loaner program for area youth. These brothers continued to pool their efforts to help keep local kids out on the ski slopes. Their dad would be proud. But that's just one project. All three brothers have been instrumental in countless civic projects throughout this town for many years. Each has played a part in various committees to renovate the high school and the junior high, projects at Remick Park, Habitat for Humanity, the Lakeway ski and after-school programs, soccer, tennis, and any other activities their kids were involved with. They're active in local theater productions, provide affordable housing for many, and even help those tenants in need with travel to appointments. Moreover, following in their footsteps of their dad, they quietly continue a tradition he started many years ago by outfitting children in need with complete outdoor winter clothing so they could safely enjoy the outdoors. Each brother tirelessly helps the community become a better place in their own unique way. It all began in 1920 when LaHoot's General Store and Ski Shop opened in Littleton. It's the oldest ski shop in America. Joe Jr., Ron, and Herb all grew up living in the apartment above, working in the store below. When it comes to keeping traditions alive, the LaHoot family-owned business is no exception. Each of the brothers has developed and continued a passion for skiing and for their community, just like their father. The LaHoot family has been a monumental factor in shaping the essence of Littleton for 4 generations. and it makes me very happy and proud to present the 2017 Citizens of the Year Award to brothers Joe, Ron, and Herb LaHoot.
Thank you, David, and I'll make this short because I know everyone wants to get home. Thank you to the Chamber, and thank you to the Executive Board. All of us brothers feel very lucky that we've made it this far, and we're very grateful to the town of Littleton and the people of Littleton. As we approach our 100th anniversary in less than 2 years, it would only be right to acknowledge those that came before us. My Lebanese immigrant grandfather, Herbert LaHoot, who bought the Grange Hall on the corner of Union and Pine in 1920 and opened up a grocery store while my grandmother, Annie, ran the shop, and he peddled dry goods throughout the North Country. My dad, Joe LaHoot, who in 1940 threw a few skis in the store, and with the help of his wife, my mom, Loretta, and the legendary Gladys, who was an icon, ran the business until we came back in the early 80s. Well, we have another generation that's hopefully following us that will continue to keep the business going for another 100 years, and hopefully through their hard work and perseverance, they'll be able to give back to this great town of Littleton. We've been very fortunate to be a part of it, and we thank you very much.
As the evening is becoming to a close, I think we will draw the 50-50 raffle. So we collected $636. Thank you to all who participated. And we have 318. So if you have your blue tickets, and $918,814. Okay. Great, thank you. If you would like to see Jessica, I believe she's gone out to the back, collect from Jessica. Thank you so much. You want to do that now? You want me to do it now? Okay. Okay, so I guess we're going to also draw the Granite State College. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, so I'd just like to thank the Board of Directors, Jessica, Omni Mount Washington, and everyone else that was on the annual dinner committee that helped make tonight be a success. Thank you all for coming. Be sure to check your red tickets for the raffle prizes outside the doors before you leave. We're looking forward to a strong, successful, and prosperous 2018, and we thank you for your continued support. Drive safely and have a great evening.